Right. Take a comfortable posture, your back as straight as you can, do it comfortably so that you stay relaxed but awake. Let your spine be just set like blocks on top of each other so you don't have to use a lot of muscle to stay upright. You just settle in and your spine settles into your hips that are supported there in the chair, your feet on the floor, your shoulders relaxed, which allows your head and neck to sit balanced on top of your shoulders. Tuck your chin in slightly and see if that makes a difference in lengthening your spine. And we'll start with 3 deep breaths. Take one with each strike of the bell. Breathing in and out. In and out. In and out. Go ahead now and just breathe normally. And let your breath just come in what is natural to you at this moment. That might mean a short breath followed by a long breath. If your breath wants to be long, let it be long. If it wants to be short, let it be short. We pretty much take the approach here that this is not about trying to control things. We work hard enough at trying to control things. This is practice at letting go of things. And why do we need to control anyway? What we find when we sit down to watch our breath is that it's been doing fairly well by itself for the last 24 hours since we last noticed it. We often don't even notice our breath until we have bad cough, allergies. We've all certainly noticed it lately with smoke from forest fires in the air. Otherwise, it just goes along as our bodies do. Yet we continue to think there are other things we have control over, our emotions or our thoughts. I think the thing I hear the most from people who are frustrated with doing mindfulness is when they say, I just can't turn off my thoughts. I don't know where we get that idea that that's what this is about. Again, we can look at the goal as being aware of the thinking that goes on. The same way we're aware of our breath. Taking that pause and listening to our bodies, to our emotions, to our thoughts. Perhaps we ask how we can stop our thoughts because we feel that thoughts are the problem. But thoughts are going to just continue. And sometimes they seem to be focused on what we need to worry about or what we need to accomplish. So much of what we're thinking is going into how we want to be seen in this world, the kind of person we want to be. There's a real freedom in just saying, I don't need to stop them. I don't need to control them. Thinking will go on. And doing this practice allows you to watch that in the same way we notice the breath from moment to moment, arising, falling away, kind of being born with each new breath and disintegrating with the out breath till the next one begins again. Thoughts and emotions are much the same. We can watch and sometimes even see how a thought just suddenly appears like breath. and then disappears on its own unless we engage with it, keep it rolling, because it's perhaps a thought we like or a thought we feel we need to stop. And as I said, I was just reading someone who's a kind of a mindfulness teacher, or what they talk about is just finding what your core is. And what you begin to find out is that it's not your feelings, it's not your thoughts, it's not your breath or your body. The thing we have that is a thread that runs through all of those is our ability to pay attention and to listen. We put down thinking, we put down feeling. And yet, when we can stop and watch this process, we see that we're kind of thinking and feeling machines. We've developed over thousands and hundreds of thousands of years of evolution to do that, to be on guard so that we can respond to danger or risk. Or the flip side of that is we respond to pleasure. That may go back to responding to a food source when that was so important. We couldn't just go to the grocery store. We had to find by foraging or hunting. So we look for what's pleasurable to us. And eating can be a big part of that. And so much of learning, when you really think about it, is memories. The example is always given that some people believe if you let a child touch a hot stove, they'll learn not to touch a hot stove again. That memory will be there. And the thing about the way those memories arise is it's as real as though it were happening again right now for the first time. So we feel the fear. We can remember quite clearly the pain. And on one hand, that helps us to remember not to touch that hot stove. It means that there are also things that come up all the time. So much of it triggered by our experiences or truly just by our senses, a feeling in our body, a certain smell. Scent is, again, one of the most important senses we would have had back when we were struggling for survival. And there's that experience of just catching a whiff of ham and beans, and you're suddenly back in your grandmother's house on Sunday, and that's what she's cooking. Just think of how clearly you can remember all that. Little arched indent in the wall where a few knickknacks are put away. That carpet that you would always look at when you were visiting, that all comes back. Or walking, and just a certain smell in the air take you back to a good or a bad memory. And all of those things come up. All of those memories and that urge to protect ourselves, to either push away from what's unpleasant or go after what's pleasant. As I say, we're kind of thinking, feeling machines, and in a way, big part of that is remembering as well. And that's not something we're going to stop, though it can be painful. I think it's interesting how when people have suffered a loss of a parent, especially, or a good friend, they may not even be aware that they're coming around to the time of year when they lost that person to death. But the smell, the feel of the air, their body knows what time of year it is, and that grief comes up again. And that's not something we can stop, or perhaps we might not want to stop it. So what we can do is just listen, to pause and be aware of it. It's that listening, that pausing, that means it doesn't dominate how we behave. Those senses or emotions don't dominate our feelings and our thoughts. Our thoughts don't dominate our lives, how we behave. It's interesting to see what can happen if you just pause and let those memories or those bodily responses come up without trying to push them away. You may find it's the resistance that makes them so difficult, that pushing away. It's as though there are two kinds of suffering. The first is, the examples that's been given is, it's like being hit by an arrow, whether it's by illness or loss or something unpleasant. And then we think so strongly, this shouldn't be this way. I shouldn't feel like this. I shouldn't let fear or grief arise. I shouldn't feel that urge to run away. And that's the way we inflict that second arrow, by making it so unpleasant. The other thing that's been said is that pain is unavoidable, but suffering is optional. And suffering is what we go through when we feel that pain and feel it shouldn't be happening. It's easy to say that, though, until you have an injury or an illness and you're struck with that deep, difficult pain that you just want to escape from. But here again, we get a chance to work with that in practicing this stopping and listening. We can see all that grows around that pain. I think all of us have experienced a pain in the neck or the back, and suddenly we're feeling pain in our hands because we're clenching our fists because the pain is difficult. We're feeling depression, sad and hopeless. And what might it be like if we just let go of that and open to what we're feeling? Whether it's pain and struggle, or even something really beautiful and joyful. It's more subtle, but we can certainly notice how, especially if we're, say, in a new romance, and one of the thoughts that come up are all the other times we've been in this point and we were disappointed, feeling left alone, so that we are already worrying about something that hasn't even happened yet. And we can be poisoning that joy we would be having otherwise. Again, letting go of those thoughts, and letting go of them begins with being aware of them. And one of the fastest ways to find something to begin with is the emotions and perceptions in the body. You learn to recognize fluttering in your belly from fear or excitement. Or some of us notice that we feel anger in our throats. We feel our throats constrict and get hot. Now, I've always wondered if that's for those of us who think we shouldn't get angry or shouldn't speak angry words. So we're feeling it in our throats because we're stuffing those words back down into us. But here again, what if we just were aware, first of all, of the sensation, the fear in our belly, the anger in our throats. And rather than trying to ignore it, we open to it. The same way we give our attention and open to our breath, knowing that in a sense it's inevitable. In the same way we breathe, we will smell and feel and taste. Memories will be triggered and thoughts will arise. And most of us have found there's not much value in trying to ignore those or push those away. But there's also not much value in getting all wound up in them. So the same step we learn just in our breath of pausing, listening, and really becoming part of the breath, we can do with those sensations of anger and even the emotions of anger. Simply being aware of their arising and why they arise. And another thing that's oftentimes said is the only thing we have any control over is our attitude. If you take it as a fact that these things just get triggered by sensations and perceptions and memories, an attitude is not always something we can change either. What we can change is struggling against them, ignoring them, or just opening to them and being aware of them. And it's a good thing to experiment with, to see what happens when you don't struggle or resist. Those feelings or thoughts may not be a problem any longer, or they may not persist any longer if you just let them come and go. So a good time, part of the reason we practice in quiet and stillness is that so that we can put this to action where the rubber meets the road, when we're angry at that driver who's cut us off, or an old sad memory comes up. That's where we can take that pause and turn back around and look at what's happening within ourselves without fighting, without running, without resisting, just being aware and present. And you can try this with minor annoyances. Sometimes that's the best place to start. You don't need to start with a deep, heavy sorrow or pain. Just an annoyance, that mosquito buzzing around your ear. Doesn't mean you don't try and shoo it away. We still try and take actions. We're not trying to seek out pain or struggle. But you can just look at that and see what happens when you work with it. You can push the mosquito away. You don't need to push the annoyance away. So try that in this coming week. Try that practice that we've gotten pretty good at, of pausing and listening. And see what you find. What you may find is that's the real source of freedom too. Not trying to make things other than they are. That freedom comes from simply accepting things as they are, getting in tune with those, and then deciding what actions need to happen. So turn back to your breath for a moment and just notice if something's changed. Has it grown calmer, or perhaps talking about these memories brought something up and your breath is coming quicker? Simply be aware of that and listen to it. And if they're short breaths, let them be short, and long be long. But just watch with full attention your last 3 breaths as the bell rings. And when you're ready, open your eyes.